Yeah, exactly. Hard to carry.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Top 500 Birds of a Feather session. We are going to introduce to you today the 66th list of Top 500. It's my great pleasure for me personally to be back at SC after 2 years of hiatus and celebrating my 36th session of supercomputing. So what we're going to do today is very quickly, we will hand out the awards, my colleagues Jack and Erich, and then we'll have a student cluster competition. We'll talk briefly with Rick Stevens about the DOE AI initiative. We'll hear from Evangelist Flores and about the Euro HPC initiative. Then we'll talk about a planned transition of the top 500, and welcoming Christine Harvey from the SIG HPC of ACM. And then Erich will give the well-known highlights of the 66 list with all the statistics. So without further ado, I'd like to move to the top 500 awards. And the way we're going to do this is I will go in order from number 1, 2, 3. So there's not that much suspension this year because, as you probably know, there wasn't that much change. And I will call out the awards and then ask the awardees to come on the stage and receive the certificate. We will move towards the middle for photo op, and then I will also want to say something. We have very small certificates this year because many of you were unhappy in the past with the big certificates. They were difficult to pack for your flight back home, and so we'll send you a PDF, and so you can print at home for the bigger certificate, okay? So don't think there is some diminished importance because the paper has been shrunk. So with these words in advance, I would like to welcome first for the top 500. And the first, number 1 in the top 500 overall, the best HPL performance is continuing to be the El Capitan system at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And I'd like to ask the representatives from Livermore and from, let me see, I have the names actually here. So I think it is going to be Rob Neely from Livermore, Jose Ramoso from HPE. Please join me on stage and receive, oh, you're here. So the interesting thing is El Capitan had a clean sweep, and they also have number 1 in the HPCG benchmark and in the HPL MXP benchmark. So congratulations to the group from Livermore. Sorry? Okay, then let's move on to number 2. And I would like to congratulate Frontier at Oak Ridge National Lab as this #2 performance in high performance LINPACK. And I would like to welcome Ashley Barker from Oak Ridge and Tim Mossing from HPE to come to the stage. And I learned how to be more effective in doing this. So Oak Ridge also won with Frontier the #3 in the HPCG benchmark and the #3 system in the HPL MXP benchmark. So more certificates for colleagues at Oak Ridge. Now I'd like to move on to the #3, and the #3 certificate goes to Aurora Intel HPE at Argonne National Lab. And Rick Stevens from Argonne will be here, and David Truly from Intel. Please come to the stage. And Aurora also won the #2 performance on the HPL MXP. So let me hand this out and then give Horst I would like to move on to hand out the certificate for the #1 in Europe. That goes to the Jülich Jupyter system, Jupyter Booster, Evident Sequana system. That is the top performance in Europe with exactly 1 exaflop performance. So I'd like to welcome Thomas Lippert and from Jülich and a representative from EuroHPC, Vangelos. Please come to the stage. And do we have anybody from Evident here? I actually don't. Yes, please come up on the stage. Okay, so while our award winners leave the stage, I gotta say that we had a request from the EU to hand out 27 certificates, and we had to limit it to 5, and so, but well deserved. So now let's come to the number 1 in Asia, and that one goes to the Fugaku system at Erich in Kobe in Japan. And I'd like to welcome Satoshi Matsuoka. And I don't know if we have a representative from Fujitsu here. If not, I'd like to also congratulate Satoshi to having the number 2 performance on the HPCG benchmark. Now I'd like to very briefly mention the Green 500 recipients, and I'd like to invite you all to join the Green 500 Birds of a Feather tomorrow afternoon, where there will be a more detailed discussion on the current state of accomplishment. And there's a clean sweep. That is the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3, and I'll switch to the combined slide, that all 3 Green 500 will be given to, now I have to look very closely.
Toulouse. Calmet at Toulouse.
All are on Bull Sequana systems, which turned out to be the most energy efficient on the top 500. One is going to Cairo system at the University of Toulouse at CNRS in France. Number 2 is going to the Romeo Center in Champagne-Ardenne, also in France. And the number 3, the third one is going to the German Climate Computer Center in Hamburg, Germany. So more details tomorrow in the Birds of a Feather. I'd like to turn over now to my colleague and friend Jack Dongarra, who will talk about the student cluster competition.
Thanks, Horst. So the student cluster competition is held every year. It's a competition where students partner with vendors. They put together a small cluster, and the team configures that cluster from the ground up and runs a sequence of benchmarks on that machine. And the limitation here is that they're capped at 10 kilowatts of power for running the benchmark. So there's a limit on what they could really stress in the benchmark. And it's quite challenging for them to get to that point. Sometimes they have to adjust the frequency of the processors to get under that 10 kilowatt budget. And this year there's a number of benchmarks that have been run, and we're going to talk about really just 2 of them, the HPL and HPLMX. So the team that scored the best for HPL, the benchmark that we have in the top 500, is the National University of Taiwan, and they achieved 561 teraflops for that. They had 2 GPUs in their nodes, NVIDIA H200 nodes, and they achieved a peak power consumption of about 9.9 kilowatts of power. And so that's quite an achievement. I'll say that 5 of the 8 teams achieved a score better than 389, and that would have put those teams 10 years ago in the top half of the top 500. So things have changed quite a bit, of course, in that time. So we're not going to give out an award for this, but just wanted to mention their achievement. And also with HPL-MX, the guys from Bristol, the University of Bristol, they put together a system which had two GPUs, AMD variety of GPUs, and they peaked at 9,720 watts. And they ran, the MXP benchmark uses lower precision to get an approximation to the solution, and then uses a mathematical technique, an iterative technique, to get to a higher level of accuracy. And they were able to do the lower precision at 16 bits to achieve this 4.7 petaflop score, which is about 5 times better than what the HPL number is. So it's a great technique to use if you have dense matrices to solve. And it's becoming a standard way of doing that today. So kudos to them for doing that. Next up is Rick Stevens. Rick is going to tell us a little bit about the Department of Energy's AI initiative that's just getting its feet on the ground.
Okay, thanks, Jack. So I can't say too much. You might have been tracking for the last few years. Of course, in the Department of Energy, we've been organizing an initiative to advance AI for science across the Office of Science, the Applied Energy Programs, and the national security domains. And there was resources that were provided in the reconciliation bill last summer, the HR1 bill, that's kickstarting some things. And over the next couple of weeks, there should be some pretty significant announcements. Of course, we have a new undersecretary, Dario Gil, who moved over from IBM to DOE, so he's the undersecretary for science. And Dario is the leader of the DOE AI initiative. He's actually going to be speaking in the booth, the DOE booth here, I think tomorrow morning around 10 o'clock. What I can say is that there's huge interest in the department, all the way from the Secretary of Energy down to all the programs and program offices, to lean in on AI and to bring the power of AI and robotics and experiments and to integrate facilities into a comprehensive capability to accelerate scientific research and to drive that forward as a way of improving R&D productivity, not just in DOE, but across the country and across the world. So I can't say much more than that. There's, of course, folks here from Oak Ridge and other labs that are heavily involved in this, and so you might find people and talk privately. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, there'll be some major public announcements about how the AI initiative is going to be rolled out and how the country is going to take on this big challenge. So thanks, Jack. I'm sorry I can't say much more than that, but it's a work in progress, and hopefully you'll find out some more about it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. And just to repeat, tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the DOE booth, Undersecretary Dario Gil will give more details, maybe, but you can ask him. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome Evangelos Flores again back on the stage. He has received already a winning certificate, and he will talk about the Euro-HPC initiative, what's next.
Thank you, Horst. Thank you all. I think there's a presentation that goes together with this one. I have to okay. Here we go. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation. Today is a great day for us. Today we're reaching not two important milestones. You saw the exaflop that we reached in Jupiter, 1.0, surprisingly round. I think it's evidence of efficiency, German-French efficiency and accuracy, this 1.0. However, also we announced today, I think it was yesterday in European time, the signature of the second exascale system, Alice Recoque, that will be installed in France. So this is amazing. This is the milestones that we set 5 even more years ago in EuroHPC. And today, here in these days, we're reaching both of them. And I would like to give you some overview of the next things that we are working on. First of all, I wanted to start where we are right now. So this is the systems that we've been installing, procuring during the first and second wave of supercomputers that EuroHPC was mandated to procure. So first we had the program for the pre-exascale, petascale systems, that some of them you know already listed, some of them already are listed in top 10. For example, Leonardo, Lumi, Mare Nostrum 5. And then the second wave was the exascale program, and there you have Jupiter and Alice Recoque. Alice Recoque will be operational, expected to be ranked in top 500 in 2027 November. So this is a process that's just starting. And there is a program of the mid-range systems, a bit smaller systems. Some of them are already under installation in Greece and Sweden, and a couple of more still there is a residual. So there will be a couple of more procurements that we will run under this program. Then, in parallel, we've been working with Quantum, and we've been very active procuring and installing quantum systems. So right now we have 10 that are being deployed across Europe. 2 of them already inaugurated and ready to go in production. And for us here, the big news that we will start providing access through our access calls now also to quantum systems. Very important project for us. All these quantum systems are made in Europe. They utilize different technologies, different quantum implementation technologies, and will give possibility for European researchers now to test and to see maybe which one of these technologies will prevail. And then the next big turn in our mandate was the AI factories. So the AI factories is a program that started exactly 1 year ago. And during this time, we have managed to select 18 different sites across Europe that will host what we call AI-optimized supercomputers. Some of these supercomputers actually are coming from the previous programs. These are big systems that they consider that they are adequate to support AI workloads, and you will see some already. Jupiter and Alice Recoque is perceived in such systems, also the system that we installed in Greece. There is an update coming for Mare Nostrum 5 that will be an AI-optimized partition that we are about to finalize. And then there is a large number of procurements that we are already have started running and will be run all the way until 2027 for smaller or bigger systems, which are going to be AI-optimized, really focusing on AI workloads. So this is where our current focus is all going, all our current efforts and our budgets. But there is a next step in the evolution. In parallel, we've been working with what we call the AI factory antennas. So these are actually countries that they are not going to host supercomputers, but they are going to set up services connecting with these AI factories that you saw in the previous slide. And essentially, this way, we're going to cover the whole continent, all member states, participating states of EuroHPC in the development of AI capacity across Europe. And then the next step, as I was saying, of the evolution is the AI gigafactories. So this is our next big project, and quite disrupting. It's departing from our traditional HPC-focused systems and how we've been doing work so far. So these systems are an order of magnitude bigger, installations bigger than what the AI factories and the current systems are aiming for. Here we are looking into really large-scale installations, data centers that will be able to host, to operate 100,000 GPUs and more. The giga, people are asking why giga, so I think there is a connotation with the amount of power, more or less, that the systems will require in the range of gigawatt. So that's, and also I think it's quite catchy. I mean, this is coming. For this reason, our regulation, our mandate needs to be updated. We expect soon this to arrive. So this new mandate will define what will be the budget, and here we're talking about the order of billions of euros of investments. And we'll give what will be our role in this activity, the EuroHPC role. It will be quite business-oriented. Here we're expecting a large investment of private funding, and these systems really will be moving more towards commercial access, commercial capacity, and really covering the areas that Europe has not been so strong so far. So these are our upcoming things. Stay connected. You'll be hearing news from us very, very soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Next, it is my great pleasure to introduce Christine Harvey to you. She is the chair of the SIG HPC, and so all of you, I'd encourage you to join ACM, and if you're an ACM member, then to also sign up for the High Performance Computing Special Interest Group, which will be supporting the top 500 as we move forward, and Christine will tell you more about it. Welcome, Christine.
All right, so first off, I want to say thank you to the Top 500 authors and ISC group for having me here to talk about this. And as Horst mentioned, I'm the chair of ACM SIG HPC. So what is this about? So ACM SIG HPC and the ISC group are currently working to transition ownership and publication of the Top 500 list to ACM. Some of you might know about this. I feel like there's been whispers, but we haven't really talked about it much yet. So this is kind of our public announcement of this work. And so I want to start going into this by giving a little bit of background. So just to kind of scope what we think about this from the SIG HPC side, how we see the top 500. For those of you that don't know what ACM and SIG HPC are, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then we'll talk about what this actually means for the list going forward. So SIG HPC and ACM are community organizations. So looking at this from the community perspective, so the top 500 is such a critical component of the international HPC community. So it's used across industry, government, academia. You guys all know this, right? You're here at the session. I don't have to convince you of this too much. But just giving some background. So it's the primary measurement system for leadership in HPC around the world. It really drives competition in the industry. And while you can talk all day about if it's the best statistic or the right statistic and if there's ways it could be shifted, it is a simple statistic that we use right now to measure HPC leadership around the world. There's also a really important historical aspect to the list as well. So tracking the evolution of the field over time. So, talking about, I think in Jack's slides about the SCC, talking about how the 5 of 8 of the SCC competition would have been in the top half of the top 500 10 years ago. Because we have the list, we can make statements like that and we can see how the list has evolved, how our field has evolved over time, which is a really powerful thing to be able to do. So that's how we see top 500. Now about ACM and SIG HPC. So hopefully you've heard of ACM. You are sitting in this room at an ACM SIG HPC conference right now. So you're already an active participant in ACM SIG HPC activities. If you're not familiar with ACM, it's the Association for Computing Machinery. It's a global scientific and educational organization dedicated to advancing the art, science, engineering, and application of computing. So it's a professional society working in the professional public interest. The main goals are open exchange of information and promoting the highest professional and ethical standards. So there's a lot to ACM. This is an ACM conference, but there's so many things. If you go to acm.org, they're involved in the publications, the ACM Digital Library. There's conferences, there's publications boards, all sorts of things as well. And then SIG HPC. So ACM has, I think, 37 special interest groups, and they're on all different areas. So we, obviously, are SIG HPC, so the special interest group on high performance computing. There's also, SIG graphics, there's SIG mod, there's 36 other SIGs that have different specialties, all in the field of computing. So for SIG HPC, it was founded in 2011. It was spun off from SIG Arch. And our goal is just to promote the advancement of the field of HPC. So our three main goals are disseminating research and experience by those using computer resources, promoting mentoring and education of the next generation, and then serving as a source of information about the field to other parts of ACM and the larger scientific community. So you can see, for us within SIG HPC and ACM, the top 500 is pretty perfectly aligned with our mission as well. So why transition the list? So there's, I think, three main things, and the authors could also talk to this if they want. But really preserving the legacy of the top 500 effort as we move forward. We also want to open it up and have opportunities for fresh ideas as well. And then we really want to enable the community-driven strategic direction. So we're moving this from the ISC group. The plan is to move this from the ISC group to the ACM SIG HPC, so we can have it be a more open, collaborative community effort as well. So what's staying the same in this plan? So Top 500 remains free and publicly accessible. It will be part of the ACM Digital Library, which is completely open. ACM is committed to open sharing of information. The list will continue to be announced at ISC and SC conferences. The founding authors, the late Hans Moyer, Erich, Jack, and Horst, will be permanently acknowledged. That was always the intention. And then the active members, the three here, will remain on the steering committee for as long as they wish to remain involved. And then the list will continue to be an impartial ranking of supercomputers, unaffiliated with and not sponsored by any vendor. So the top 500, I think the core important parts to everyone in this room and also the authors in the ISC group will be maintained moving forward. What will change? So one of the big changes is that we're going to start publishing the list in the ACM Digital Library. That's the vision. And this will be, hopefully, you've all looked at something in the ACM Digital Library. It's a very useful resource. It will be completely free as of January 1st, 2026. Ownership of the list will transition from the ISC group to ACM. And then we'll have two committees formed under SIG HPC. So the plan now is for there to be a steering committee, and the steering committee will address topics about the strategic direction, general governance, community involvement and interactions, and manage that aspect of it. And then there will continue to be a technical committee that's responsible for maintaining the database, the assets, and then actually producing the top 500 supercomputers list. So there will be two parts to it. And then I've got a list of the founding members for that group under SIG HPC. This is who we currently have slated. So Erich, Jack, and Horst will all remain. The SIG HPC chair will be a standing member on the committee as that evolves over time. Satoshi Vu and Anders Jensen from Euro HPC. The technical committee will continue to be Erich and Jack, and then Pjort, and then we'll have a SIG HPC rep for communications, and I think we also have another possible one or two founding members for the technical committee as well. So that is, I've talked about top 500, SIG HPC, what's staying the same, what's changing, and why we're doing this. So now some next steps. So during SC, we're going to have the steering committee meet. We'll meet tomorrow. We'll try to sort out some more of these details as much as we can. The proposed technical committee will continue shadowing the list production. So far we've had a SIG HPC team that has been shadowing these guys over the past couple months as they produce this iteration of the list. We'll continue that shadowing going into the ISC release of the list. And then we'll have, there's a lot of details to work through. So we'll have more details on ownership and roles. We'll work through this with ACM, SIG HPC, and the top 500 moving forward, and hopefully we'll have more information for you guys at the next announcement of the list. That's all I've got, and I think we have time for questions at the end. So, all right, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Christine. I, for one, I'm very glad for your direct personal engagement in making this transition happen, because I think it will assure the continuity of the list and the continued open access to the important set of numbers that we've collected for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now my great pleasure is to introduce Erich, who is, of course, the force behind all this, and he will give a detailed analysis of the 66 list.
Thank you, Horst. Thank you, Christine. So, good evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. My job is to find something new and exciting in the list. So here are some of the highlights I'm going to talk about. Of course, I'm going to present the various top 10s according to the different matrices, and you have seen a good deal of them already. And then after that, I'm really going to focus on what happened during the last 12 months or during the last 6 months. So I'm going to look at the new technologies, new systems going into the list and ask questions, for instance, like where are the Blackwell systems showing up in the list, what are they used for, and so on and so forth. I'm going to reiterate on some of the technological changes we have been tracking for a while and how they develop, if their signatures are actually changing or if we still think those changes we have seen in the list continue as they are. And I'm going to present some of the classical statistics about the 94 new systems on the list during 2025. So with that, that's the top 10. Of the top 500 itself, ordered by Olympic Performance, and as usual in yellow is what changed. And you see the actual ranking and the actual list of systems is identical to the last time. The only thing which changed is the number 1 system, El Capitan. They integrated the last rack of a test system in the main system and remeasured the main system, so it's a slightly better performance than 6 months ago, but essentially it's the same system. And then, of course, the system, the Jupyter Booster system at Jülich, they had it installed by June, but now they were able to measure the whole system and achieved actually 1.000 exaflops on the HPL benchmark. We haven't quite looked into how they managed the feat of hitting that number precisely, but they did. So congratulations to the 4th exascale system on our list. It's the first one outside of the US. I should also have mentioned, of course, the first 3 systems are installed at the Department of Energy laboratories in the US and are a testament to the success of the exascale system that DOE has been conducting. So moving on to the HPCG benchmark, there we actually see some new systems in the top 10. So HPCG is really a benchmark which is very geared towards high data movement, while HPL is more sensitive to high peak performance. And we see 2 new systems on the list, in particular at number 6, the first Blackwell system. That's the first time you see a Blackwell system on the list. It's installed in Japan at SoftBank, so that already gives you a hint about what that system is used for. And Blackwell now has a very interesting architecture because while they improved performance matrices across the whole range of things, they also decreased it for floating point 64. So there is a little bit of uneasiness about the Blackwell system in this community. When we look at something like the rightmost column in this table, where we look at the fraction of peak, we see the ratio of HPCG performance divided by peak performance. We see the ratio of 2 matrices, one in the denominator, which is HPCG, which benefits from the increased bandwidth on Blackwell, but the denominator, the peak performance of the system, of course, gets penalized by the reduced FP64 peak performance. So overall, what seems to be the case is that Blackwell is actually doing very well on HPCG benchmark. That's why that system, which is number 17 in the top 500, is actually number 6 on the HPCG benchmark. So not everything is bad for the HPC community in terms of Blackwell. Blackwell shows up, just not necessarily in the places you expected it to show up. The other new system, number 9, is a more traditional NVIDIA accelerated system installed at ExxonMobil. So I'm going to come back to this story about Blackwell and the HPCG efficiencies in a separate slide. But before I do that, the other top 10s, here is the top 10 of the HPL MXP, 2 new systems. Jupyter actually submitted a measurement and is also number 4. The first 4 positions on this list are actually the same 4 systems as on the top 500, just in slightly different order. It's nice to see. And the first 3 systems, the DOE systems, are actually achieving over 10 exaflops on the mixed precision benchmark. That's very nice that we see the benefit of that technology, software technology, in action. And the Jupyter Booster system benefits from that in a similar fashion. The number 5 system, again, is the Blackwell system at SoftBank, which also does very well on this mixed precision benchmark. But that is, of course, one of the declared goals, target markets of the Blackwell system, so we should expect it fairly high on that list. The number 6 system, another system in Japan, was remeasured, and you see in the 2 rightmost columns now actually 2 numbers over each other, because with the MXP, while the original description of the MXP specifies that you shall not run less than 16-bit precision. Some people implemented it in 8-bit precision and submitted those results. So we are starting to collect those results, and we're going to have to figure out what we do with those in the end of the day, if we allow them or if we separate them out in a separate table. And you see an additional benefit that system has if it runs the lowest precision piece of the code in 8 bits instead of 16 bits floating point. So much for the HPL MXP. The other metric we have been tracking for a while is, of course, the metric of the Green 500, that is energy efficiency of computation. Now, energy efficiency of computation is not a metric where large systems have a benefit. It's a metric, it's a technological metric. So you see smaller systems on the top 10 of the Green 500 typically. And you see a larger turnover in the Green 500 because lower systems change more frequently and easier to install. That's not quite the case this time. We have 2 new systems, number 1 and 3, which are of the same architecture, as Horst already said, as the previous and current number 2 system. All of those 3 systems are Grace Hopper and evident systems. So there was a clean sweep from evident with Grace Hopper enabled systems for the top 3 positions in the Green 500. It shows the benefit you can get from that architecture in terms of energy efficiency. And we don't see any other new systems in the Green 500 in the top 10 this time. So that's different from the past. In particular, there is no Blackwell system in there, just in case you were wondering. So as the list is becoming less dynamic, I started just showing the largest new systems in a separate table. These are the 10 largest systems which are new in the list. And you see at number 17 is actually the system at the SoftBank in Japan. And it's followed by a variety of systems. So a couple of things to notice about this table. The end of that table, the 10th system now is at position 79. That's much further down than usually we end up around position 40, 50 for the 10th system, 10th new system. That's further down because the turnover in the list was slow, not just in the top 10, but in general. The additional added performance to the list was very low. This time only 7% of the RMX Limpec performance got added. The second thing you see in the third column when you look at the countries, a lot of these systems are installed in countries which are not traditionally associated as big consumers of HPC, like India, Taiwan, Brazil, Israel. So we see a nice change in scenery in terms of where these systems are installed. But we haven't seen too many new systems in the US or in Europe the last 6 months. And if you look in the second to last column, I colored the various types of accelerators these systems use, GPUs, and you see a mixture of Blackwell systems, traditional Hopper systems, as well as AMD Instinct systems. We actually have in the top 10 here of the new systems, there's, I believe, 3 Blackwell systems in there. So they are in the list, they show up. And just because they are the new technology, I pulled them all out. So these are the 8 Blackwell systems which are new in the list, which were installed the last 6 months, together with their location in the top 500 on the left-hand side. And if you look over that list, one thing, if you look over the names of the sites and the systems, I think every line has the acronym AI somewhere, either in the name or in the name of the system or in the name of the site. So that gives you a way where these systems are installed, and that's what Blackwell was designed for. And these sites which specialize on AI computing, they buy these systems and install them. So this is a small window into the AI market we actually have, and we see it very clearly for this new technology which is geared towards that market. So I'm coming back before I go to the regular statistics to that issue of HPCG benchmark and peak performance and ratio of peak performance and things like that. Here I pulled out just placeholders. If I take all the HPC measurements and just look at the efficiency of peak and sort them by that metric, I get the following picture. The first 4 systems, and systems naturally group themselves together if you do that. The first 4 systems are actually NEC SX Aurora vector systems. It's a traditional architecture with very high memory bandwidth, which is very well suited to the memory pattern seen in the HPCG benchmark. So those are the first four systems in that ranking, with about 5.6 peak efficiency on the HPCG benchmark, which is fairly high. They are followed by 6 systems based on Fujitsu's FX1000 architecture, which is the Fugaku architecture, and Fugaku sits right in the middle of that field. They have about 3.2 maximum efficiency. And after that, we already have a block of the new Blackwell systems. There is actually a total of 5 Blackwell systems, which measured the HPCG benchmarks, and they follow with just slightly less efficiency, around 2.9. So on that benchmark, the Blackwell systems tend to do very, very well in terms of efficiency of peak, which really raises the question, are there good chips for high-performance computing? At the end of the day, it really depends on your workload, and you have to run the benchmarks yourself. Based on the 2 bookmarks of HPL and HPCG, you cannot say for sure that Blackwell is a good chip or a bad chip for you. You have to run your own benchmark and see where you actually fall on that line between peak floating point performance and peak bandwidth. So with that, just a reminder, our systems in the top 500 get older and older. There is a tiny kink at the right end of that graph, and I show it because I need to tell you that I don't know why we have the kink, and there are 2 explanations. One is we got very aggressive in kicking old systems out because we discovered we had systems in there which were decommissioned a year or 2 years ago, and we don't want that. So more and more of you are going to receive emails questioning you if you really still run that system, so be prepared for that, or just tell us when you decommission the old systems. So it could be that we just were very aggressive with kicking old systems out of the list. It could also be that the trend in the community is changing. It could just be a hiccup. But overall, we are still at peak age of systems in the top 500. Very little performance came into the list, only about 7% of additional performance the last 6 months. We had one list which was slower, but it was a very slow increase. And because there was no new system in the top 500 and only 2 upgrades, the top heaviness of the top 500 has slightly decreased. Now you actually need the top 10 to accumulate half the performance in the top 500. At the maximum, we had about 7. But still, the list is very, very top heavy. So the top 10 accumulates half of the performance right now. So with that, showing the signature slide of performance development over time, for the whole 33 years, we have been tracking this, and for about, I don't know, 6, 7 orders of magnitude, which is a little scary. And of course, we have shown a couple of inflection points. The first one we saw at the bottom of the list, the orange line, in June 2008, and propagating slowly to the average or top of the list in June 2013, was driven by the end of the NAR scaling. And we started increasing machine sizing and all those things to compensate for that. But since June 2017, at the bottom of the list, we clearly see a new trend that the performance at the bottom list is growing slower and slower. Since then, has been very stable, and that continues. That trend has not propagated through the whole list. It hasn't shown up clearly at the top there yet, and we don't fully understand what's going on. One of the hypotheses, or the different hypotheses we had, were, of course, end of Moore's law. The space at the bottom is running out. I'm not quite sure that that is the case. If we look through all the technological features we track in the database and do a simple correlation, the one variable which correlates the best with the slowdown we see is actually the total number of cores in the overall system, not per chip, but in the total system. So that correlates well and has an inflection point in 2017. But if that's driven by what happens at the chip level or what happens at the machine room level, that's an open question. It's probably a combination of both. But I just want to reiterate, it's not only what happens on the chip level that doesn't explain the inflection point, that doesn't correlate nearly as well. So if you take that trend since 2017 and extrapolate it out, I've been showing this a couple of years as well. You see the number 500, the red line, is already the new growth rate we see since 2017. And if you project that out to the end of the decade, if you have a 10 petaflop system, you're probably going to be on the list, still going to be on the list in 2030, unless we find out you don't have it anymore and we kick you out. So growth has tremendously slowed down compared to what it used to be. And the blue line, at some point, the number one line, is going to curve over too. That's our expectations, but we have no indication of that. But if we reach the 10 exaflops at the end of the decade, that's not a given, even so this line is still above. But I would be a little cautious about that. So with that, I'm going to just highlight some of the traditional statistics, but only for the system which are new in 2025. So 2 editions of the list. I take 2 because I wanted something like 100 systems. This is 94 systems. So I get a little bit more better statistics than if I just do it about 6 months. On the left-hand side, you always see the statistics based on the number of systems. On the right-hand side, you always see the statistics based on the size of the system as measured by the impact benchmark. So you see the last 12 months, US, Europe, and Asia installed about the same number of systems. But of course, Europe, especially with Jupyter Booster, installed a much larger system, so their slice on the right-hand side is much larger. And the North American slice is smaller because the big systems in the US, they were installed more than a year ago, so they don't count in the statistics. Now, if I take each of these slices and blow them up in the respective actually countries where these systems are installed, we get this picture. And you see the similar story. The United States slice on the right-hand side is smaller than on the left-hand side because there were a fair number of systems installed, but just not as big. The big systems had been installed in 2023, 2024. The German slice on the right-hand side is very large this time based on Jupyter Booster. And the other thing you might notice is that there is no mentioning of China in these slices and slides in this slide. And that's simply because this is installation sites. And almost more than 5 years ago, China stopped reporting any installations inside of China. So we have no Chinese systems, basically no new Chinese systems. We know of no new Chinese systems. We are totally blind to the market. So that shows up in these slides quite prominently. Now, if you look at actually where the companies live or where these systems are installed, produced, not installed, sorry, where these systems are installed, of course, the dominance of the US always has been and still is much larger. This time, the European slice, again, on the right-hand side, due to Jupyter Booster and similar systems, is much larger than it usually is. But you actually now notice there's also a Chinese slice there. Those are the Lenovo systems which are installed outside of China, in Europe and in other countries. And those systems, they often get reported to us, so we see those, and Lenovo still keeps installing them. They had a fair number of new systems. They tend to be smaller, so their slice on the right-hand side is smaller, but they're certainly there. We do not know about the Lenovo systems in China itself, so that's dark territory for us. Now, if I take each of these slices again and break it up into different companies which are behind that, you see in both slices, HPE remains the clear leader in the market. Evident clearly has been for a couple of years and is the leader in Europe as a European manufacturer, and this time has a very nice slice on the right-hand side based on the big systems they've installed. And you see a variety of other manufacturers. In the US, I don't mention them too often, but I want to give a shout out to Dell because they have been in the market for a long time, and they're still installing a fair number of systems there. They are currently clearly the number 2 in the US producers, as far as US producers are concerned. NVIDIA has their own slice, but those is not all the NVIDIA accelerated systems. Those are only the systems you really have to send the check for to NVIDIA itself. So typically Grace Hopper systems, NVIDIA builds themselves. They have a nice market share, but these little green slices do not reflect the market impact NVIDIA has. That's obviously much larger. To see that, we have to look into actual technology in terms of chips. And for that, I have 2 slides. The first one shows you which brand of CPU those systems use. And Intel and AMD have been trading places in these categories for a while. Intel is currently ahead, but you see an NVIDIA slice, which in terms of performance is fairly large, actually. Those are strictly the Grace Hopper systems, which don't need another CPU. Those are basically the Grace CPUs which we track in the system, in the list. And because the Grace Hopper systems tend to be very large, that slice on the right-hand side is very large. So, okay. Now, if you do the same for GPUs, of course, the picture is a little different. Because if you look at GPUs, most of the GPUs in the top 500, especially in the commercial market, are NVIDIA branded, and especially if you go by performance. Now, the big caveat here is this, again, this is the 94 systems of 2025. So, for instance, the top 3 systems at the DOE labs, they are not counted here because they are older. So you only see what was installed the last 12 months. You don't see the older systems. This is not the inventory of the whole list. This is just what happened last year. And as soon as NVIDIA, as a big NVIDIA accelerated systems gets installed, a big Intel or AMD accelerated system gets installed again, that statistic would change substantially. There is also a fair number still of systems which do not have accelerators. They tend to be smaller. They tend to be in the commercial market, but nevertheless, they are there, and they get reported to some extent to us. Okay, with that, I hope I mentioned all these issues or topics. El Capitan swept the top again. Yeah? It's DOE exascale systems. Jupiter is the 4th exascale system. It's the first one outside the US. We have high performance on the HPL MXP benchmark. We have 8 NVIDIA Blackwell systems on the list. They feature in some of the rankings fairly high. The Green 500 is dominated by accelerators, of course, by either NVIDIA and Grace Hopper or by the AMD MI accelerated systems. Systems are getting older and older. The trend for slower and slower performance growth is continuing. We don't quite know. We don't have proof of what is actually the reason for that, and we are looking for that. But there is a question mark behind the 10 exaflop at the end of the decade if that's really possible. And of course, as I had said the last couple of years, a big market segment now is AI-enabled software, AI software. And to really track those systems and track those markets, we're going to have to continue to look at new benchmarks and new metrics and find ways to track those systems. We see some of them in the top 500, but we don't track them nearly as well as the HPC market. And just as a reminder, I always have to put it there, all the systems in China are missing, so we don't know what's going on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erich, and I would like to invite questions from the audience, and I believe we have microphones, so raise your hand or line up behind the microphones. That's probably the best way. Is there a question on this microphone back there? No?
Student volunteer.
Yes. Oh, it's a student volunteer. Okay. Thank you. Okay. There is a hand up. Please step up to the microphone.
Thanks very much for the presentations. And I'd like to ask, I've noticed that there are a huge amount of AI clusters from the tech giant. For example, the X has a cluster of more than 100,000 GPUs. So I was wondering, is this sort of like clusters, why does it not count it into the top 5 supercomputers? Or is there like a specific rules that rules out those of clusters?
So we don't rule out these clusters, but they have to submit the benchmark first. And I heard this from one of the hyperscalers. They said they cannot afford running the benchmark. It takes away the CPU time from, or GPU time from their paying customers to run the benchmark. So a lot of the hyperscalers just don't want to run the HPL benchmark. And the second reason is that many of the hyperscalers, including, and I add X into that category, are afraid of revealing to the competition the availability of their computational resource.
Let me just say that there is one cloud-based system on the top 10 list, in fact.
Yeah.
So that's a Microsoft system, and it rates number 5. So it's the fifth largest, fifth fastest system on the top 500 list. So somebody has taken time to run the benchmark, but you do have to run the benchmark, as Horst said. So you have to dedicate time, and you don't make one run, you make many runs because you're trying to optimize the performance. And you got to get the right answer as well, so that may take additional runs.
Okay, right. Thank you very much.
Okay, I ask one more time for questions. If there aren't any, then I would like to conclude the session. Thank you all for attending and wish you all a wonderful rest of the conference. Bye-bye and good evening.